Relief is often more powerful than intensity in these dynamics. Where others chase emotional highs, avoidant individuals are often drawn to environments that don't demand anything from them in moments of withdrawal. When space is respected without resentment, it feels safe to return rather than something they need to escape. Grounded confidence is another layer that reaches them deeply. Avoidant individuals, often without realizing it, constantly scan for subtle power dynamics in relationships. When someone seeks approval, reassurance, or emotional anchoring from them, it can create a sense of pressure or responsibility that feels heavy over time. But when they encounter someone who is internally steady, someone who does not rely on external validation to feel stable, someone who chooses themselves without needing to announce it, they register that difference immediately. This is not dependence. This is sovereignty. And that quiet self-possession is deeply impactful to someone who fears being emotionally responsible for another person's stability. There is no pressure in it, no expectation, no emotional weight being shifted onto them, just a calm sense of self that stands on its own. And that kind of presence doesn't chase, it attracts. Emotional neutrality during moments of tension is equally powerful. Avoidant individuals are highly sensitive to emotional escalation. Raised voices, emotional flooding, sudden intensity, or uncontrolled reactions can trigger withdrawal almost instantly. Their system is built to retreat from overwhelm. But when conflict or discomfort is met with calm clarity, when needs are expressed without emotional chaos, without pressure, and without demanding immediate resolution, it changes the entire experience for them. They are no longer in survival mode. They can remain present. And in that presence, real connection becomes possible. Not through emotional extremes, but through stability. Not through passion spikes, but through regulated interaction that feels safe to stay in. Over time, it is not intensity that builds attachment for them. It is the absence of threat. Then there is the pull of a life that is already full. Mystery doesn't come from playing games or withholding attention. It comes naturally from a life that is rich, structured, and independent. When your world is clearly bigger than the connection itself, it signals something important. You are not waiting, and you are not lacking. Avoidant individuals are often repelled by over-availability or by people whose entire emotional world revolves around the relationship. It creates pressure, even if unspoken. But when your life carries depth, goals, interests, direction, purpose, it reframes the connection entirely. It becomes an addition, not a necessity. Lust tends to chase exclusivity and urgency. Avoidant psychology, on the other hand, leans toward optionality. And when someone naturally embodies that sense of having a full life without needing to prove it, attachment develops in a slower, more organic way. There is no pressure to hold them in place, so they don't feel the need to run. Finally, emotional honesty without expectation creates a surprisingly strong pull. When you express what you feel without attaching demands, without requiring reassurance, fixing, or immediate emotional response, it changes the emotional equation entirely. Avoidant individuals often anticipate that emotional expression will come with hidden obligations, that vulnerability will require them to step into a role, fix something, or take responsibility for another person's emotional state. But when honesty is offered cleanly, without expectation attached, it disarms that assumption. It becomes safe to hear, safe to witness, safe to stay present with. And in that safety, something deeper than attraction begins to form. Not urgency, not chase, but trust. When it doesn't, when emotional expression is given without any hidden demand, something rare begins to surface for them. Closeness without cost. It quietly challenges their usual expectations of intimacy. Where they are used to emotional interactions carrying weight, expectation, or obligation, This kind of openness arrives without pressure attached. And that difference is what makes it stand out. Lust doesn't really challenge them in a meaningful way. It can feel exciting, even engaging, but it rarely reaches the deeper protective layers they operate from. What does challenge them is honesty that carries no demand for a response, no requirement for reassurance, and no expectation of emotional repayment. That kind of emotional clarity disrupts their usual defensive pattern in a way intensity never can. Clear, calm boundaries are another element that creates both safety and attraction at the same time. When limits are communicated without anger, without manipulation, and without emotional punishment, and then followed through consistently, it sends a very strong internal signal. It communicates self-respect. Avoidant individuals are highly sensitive to control dynamics, even when they are subtle. They instinctively resist situations where emotional pressure is used to influence behavior. But when you hold your boundaries firmly, without trying to control them, and without abandoning yourself in the process, something shifts. You are neither chasing nor submitting. You are simply steady. And that balance is quietly magnetic. Intentional silence carries a similar kind of psychological weight. Not the kind of silence that comes from withdrawal or emotional shutdown, but the kind that feels natural, grounded, and comfortable. The ability to sit in shared space without filling it with explanations, reassurance, or emotional noise creates a sense of ease that is surprisingly rare for them. Lust tends to require interaction, stimulation, and constant engagement. But silence offers something different entirely. It offers peace. And for a nervous system that is often scanning for emotional intensity or hidden pressure, peace feels unusually compelling. It doesn't provoke them, it regulates them. And what regulates the system often becomes quietly attractive over time. One of the strongest psychological shifts happens when you no longer feel the need to influence their response at all. When you stop trying to be chosen, validated, understood, or secured by them, your entire emotional stance changes. You are no longer operating from pursuit. You are operating from presence. Avoidant individuals are often drawn to what can be described as emotional sovereignty. When you exist as someone who is grounded in themselves, calm, self-contained, and internally steady, you remove the subtle pressure that usually exists in most relational dynamics for them. There is no emotional debt forming, no expectation hanging in the air, just clarity, and that clarity creates space. What most people misunderstand is that avoidant individuals are not immune to attraction. They are sensitive to it, but they are highly reactive to pressure. When desire is paired with expectation, it feels heavy. It feels like something they must manage or escape. But when presence is calm, consistent, and emotionally unintrusive, it moves differently. It bypasses resistance instead of triggering it. Once their nervous system begins to associate someone with safety rather than demand, something important starts to form. Not urgency, not obsession, but relief, curiosity, and quiet fascination. These are the emotions that tend to linger far longer than intensity ever does. At that point, connection is no longer built on chasing or convincing. It forms through repetition of safety, respect, and emotional steadiness. And over time, that becomes more compelling to them than fleeting spikes of desire. The deeper truth is simple. Avoidant patterns are not moved by what you want from them. They are moved by how they feel in your presence. And what lasts is rarely the most intense connection in the moment. It is the one that feels safe enough for the nervous system to return to again and again without fear of being overwhelmed. That is where attachment slowly takes root, not in pressure, but in calm recognition, steady presence, and emotional space that never demands more than what feels safe to give. In the end, what this all points to is a very simple but often misunderstood truth about connection, especially with someone who has avoidant tendencies. It is not intensity that determines lasting attachment, and it is not the loudness of emotion that creates depth. What actually shapes how they bond is the emotional environment you consistently create around them. Avoidant individuals are not disconnected from attraction, nor are they incapable of deep attachment. They are simply highly attuned to pressure, emotional demand, and anything that threatens their sense of autonomy. When connection feels like expectation, control, or emotional responsibility, their instinct is to pull back. Not because they do not feel, but because their nervous system prioritizes safety above closeness. But when the dynamic is different, when presence is calm instead of chaotic, when love or interest is expressed without demand, when boundaries are clear without punishment, and when space is respected without fear, something shifts beneath the surface. The relationship stops feeling like a situation they must manage and starts feeling like a space they can safely return to. In that space, attraction takes on a different form. It is no longer driven by chase, intensity, or emotional highs. It becomes rooted in relief, curiosity, and psychological safety. They begin to associate you not with pressure, but with stability. Not with emotional risk, but with emotional ease. And that association is far more powerful and long-lasting than temporary desire. What most people miss is that this kind of connection is not built through strategy or manipulation. It cannot be forced, performed, or faked for long. It emerges naturally when someone is emotionally grounded, self-sufficient, and no longer trying to earn or secure validation from the other person. That internal steadiness is what creates the conditions for real attachment to grow. Ultimately, the deeper conclusion is this: avoidant individuals are not drawn to what overwhelms them. They are drawn to what regulates them. Not to what demands more, but to what asks for less. Not to intensity, but to consistency. And not to emotional pursuit, but to emotional safety. When you embody that kind of presence, connection stops being a chase and starts becoming a choice they make on their own terms. And whatever form that connection takes, whether it deepens into attachment or simply remains meaningful, it is shaped by one thing above all else: how safe they feel being themselves around you. That is the foundation everything else rests on. You may think attraction is driven purely by intensity, by chemistry that ignites instantly, by emotional highs, by the kind of magnetic pull that makes everything feel urgent and overwhelming. But when it comes to an avoidant partner, that assumption quickly breaks apart. What works on most people doesn't land the same way here. Physical attraction and emotional intensity may get attention, but they rarely create real attachment in someone who is built to protect their emotional independence. For an avoidant mind, raw desire is not what creates lasting fascination. In fact, it often fades too quickly to matter. What actually reaches them operates on a completely different layer. It isn't loud, it isn't forceful, and it doesn't demand anything from them. It's subtle, psychological, and deeply internal. It moves beneath their defenses rather than pushing against them. And once you understand this shift, you stop trying to win them through effort, and instead start embodying something far more powerful: presence that naturally draws them in without pressure. One of the strongest forces that impacts an avoidant person is emotional self-sufficiency. Not the fake version where someone acts detached or tries to appear unbothered, but a genuine inner stability. It's the quiet awareness that your emotional state is not dependent on their attention, validation, or response. You remain whole, whether they are close or distant. Avoidant individuals are extremely sensitive to emotional dependence. They can feel it almost instantly when someone begins to lean on them for regulation, reassurance, or constant validation. And when that happens, something inside them pulls back. It's not necessarily a conscious decision, it's an automatic protective response. Emotional pressure feels like a threat to their freedom, even when it comes from love. But something very different happens when they encounter someone who enjoys connection without needing it to feel complete. That kind of emotional independence doesn't push them away, it stabilizes the space between you. It communicates safety without words. It signals, I am not here to consume you. I am not here to trap you. I am not here to lose myself in you. And paradoxically, that is exactly what makes them lean in. Not because they suddenly crave dependency, but because, for the first time, closeness doesn't feel like something that will cost them their identity. Another powerful trigger is emotional restraint combined with depth. Many people misunderstand restraint as coldness or lack of interest, but avoidant individuals perceive it differently. When someone doesn't overexpose their emotions, doesn't rush to explain everything, and doesn't spill their inner world all at once, it creates space for curiosity. They begin to sense that there is more underneath the surface, layers they haven't accessed yet. And that sense of mystery is far more engaging to them than immediate emotional availability. Passion may spark attraction quickly, but curiosity sustains it. Lust can burn bright and fade fast, but curiosity lingers in the mind long after the interaction is over. When they cannot fully read you, their imagination steps in to fill the gaps. They start thinking about you when you're not around. They replay conversations. They wonder what you didn't say just as much as what you did. And in that quiet mental space, attachment starts forming in a way that feels natural and unforced. It is no longer about pursuit, it becomes mental presence. Equally important is consistency without emotional pressure. Avoidant individuals are often used to emotional unpredictability. In many of their past experiences, closeness has been tied to tension, expectations, or shifting emotional demands. As intimacy increases, so does pressure, and eventually they learn to associate closeness with loss of control. So when they meet someone who remains steady, calm in tone, grounded in behavior, and consistent in presence, it creates a very different internal experience. There are no emotional spikes they need to brace against, no sudden demands they need to escape from, no unpredictable shifts they have to manage. This steadiness doesn't bore them. It regulates them. What feels stable to you may feel unusually calming to them. Because underneath their avoidant patterns, there is still a nervous system that has learned to stay alert, to anticipate emotional waves, and to prepare for discomfort. So when they finally encounter consistency without pressure, their system begins to soften. The environment feels safer, less threatening, more predictable in a way that doesn't suffocate them. And in that calm, something unexpected happens. Attraction deepens, not through excitement, but through relief. Not through pursuit, but through safety. This is where most people misunderstand avoidant dynamics. They assume distance means disinterest, or that calmness is being taken for granted. But in reality, for someone wired to avoid emotional engulfment, stability can feel more compelling than intensity ever could. Because intensity excites the senses, but steadiness soothes the nervous system. And for someone who has spent much of their emotional life bracing for change, unpredictability, or pressure, that sense of calm can feel almost addictive in its own quiet way. At that point, attraction is no longer about chasing sparks. It becomes about experiencing a space where connection feels possible without loss of self. And that is what quietly draws them closer, without force, without urgency, and without needing to be convinced. This is the subtle psychology that most people miss entirely. Being seen without being fully exposed is one of those subtle dynamics that quietly overrides raw lust every time. For someone with an avoidant pattern, being completely known can feel less like intimacy and more like a loss of control. They are protective of their inner world, not because there is nothing to share, but because exposure often feels like vulnerability without safety. But something very different happens when you show genuine perception without intrusion. When you notice them carefully, how their moods shift, how their silences speak, how their behavior changes in small patterns, without pushing for explanations or forcing them to open up, something shifts internally. It creates a rare experience. They feel understood, but not invaded. Lust is demanding in nature. It wants access, closeness, immediacy. But this kind of attention is different. It doesn't take, it recognizes. And recognition for an avoidant person feels far safer than desire ever could. Desire can feel like pressure. Being understood feels like acceptance. And acceptance lowers their defenses in a way intensity never will. Another often overlooked trigger is respect for distance. Most people interpret emotional or physical space as rejection, and their instinct is to close that gap immediately through reassurance, pursuit, or emotional correction. But avoidant individuals process distance differently. For them, space is regulation. It is how they regain internal balance. So when distance is met without panic, without emotional punishment, and without attempts to force closeness, it creates an unexpected effect. It disrupts their usual expectation that space will lead to conflict or pressure. Instead, they encounter calm, neutrality, stability. And that contrast becomes quietly compelling. Not because it excites them, but because it relieves them.